Hello, my name is Liam Apple. Today I will be presenting a slideshow presentation about the design style that is called English Art Nouveau. To begin, this broad art or design style called Art Nouveau originated in Britain but developed in many different regions, spreading to the French, English, and even to the Americans. Its lifespan spread from the late 1880s to the early 1920s, just before the First World War. In order to tell a story about English Art Nouveau, it is important to first include some of the most passionate leaders, who were also designers that brought this design to life, showing it off to people who were stuck in the cluttered Victorian era of decorative art. Of the passionate leaders, it is well known that William Morris, who is on the left, was the most important. Morris broke through the mold of Victorian art by bringing a new modern life to art. He did this by leading the English arts and crafts movement and the aesthetic movement, inspiring many art designers to approach their art with unity among all of the arts through the arts and crafts movement and romantic individualism with a taste for eroticism through the aesthetic movement. Additionally, other passionate leaders that also had to do with the move from Victorian art to Art Nouveau were Louise Comfort Tiffany, who was on the right, and Aubrey Beardsley, who was in the middle. Tiffany, though, his own work as a designer began using elements of nature in his glass makings, bringing much attention to the art in a famous Paris gallery, where many great designers came to display what they had created. The next designer you cannot leave out of the English Art Nouveau. In an inaugural issue of the Studio, Aubrey Beardsley began the momentum that the Art Nouveau really needed. After publishing many pieces, he was considered the infant terrible of the Art Nouveau, with a striking penline, vibrant black and white work, and not to mention shockingly exotic images. Contrary to what William Morris had wanted with this new age of free art and expression, he actually went to legal ends to try and stop this repelling imagery that Beardsley was unleashing to the public. Despite the ongoing war between these two, Aubrey Beardsley was named art editor for the Yellow Book, a magazine whose bright yellow cover became an iconic image for new and outrageous work. Now that we have talked about passionate leaders, it is now time to talk about three of the leading graphic designers from this time period. The first graphic designer that has already been talked about in this presentation is Aubrey Beardsley. Beardsley lived a short life, growing up in the United Kingdom and passing away at the age of 26 with tuberculosis. Though his life was short, his works lived on to inspire and catch every eye that came upon his pieces. His designs were described as influence coming from Japanese woodcuts and depicted the grotesque, the decadent, and the erotic. The second artist that I believe was the great designer of this movement was Walter Crane. Crane was an English artist, again born in the United Kingdom, passing away at the age of 70 with 3 children. He is considered to be one of the most prolific children's books creators of his time, writing Beauty and the Beast, The Baby's Opera, and The Flowers from Shakespeare's Gardens. Among these books, especially Beauty and the Beast, the cover designs were ones to be awed when looking at. Lastly, the third artist that we have is one of the most prolific from this time period, and it again is William Morris. Morris was a man of many talents. He was a textiles designer, poet, artist, novelist, architectural conservatist, printer, translator, and even a social activist. He lived to the age of 62, having 2 children with his beloved wife. He was the most well known in art for his patterned designs on fabrics and wallpapers that looked to nature for his inspiration. Now that we have talked about the passionate leaders and great designers of this time, it is also vital to note that people who promoted this newfound art were equally as important in creating momentum for this movement. The first man that we will talk about is Nicholas Pevsner, who is on the left. Pevsner promoted Art Nouveau towards the end of its lifespan and even after, promoting much of William Morris's perspective and supporting the idea of creating things that simply could not be done by machines, things with natural and creative signatures from artists that were well renowned. Next to his picture on the left is a picture of his book, Pioneers of the Modern Design. This book mentions William Morris and goes into how Art Nouveau inspired so many things. Additionally, another man named Baron Victor Horta, who is on the right, promoted Art Nouveau in a big and interesting way. Horta promoted Art Nouveau by putting its style to use, pioneering the use of iron and steel with decorative motifs from nature. One of his pieces that drew much attention was Hotel Tassel, a hotel that he owned that is on the right next to his picture. The last thing to add among the many things that Horta inspired from Art Nouveau was his own museum displaying architecture of Art Nouveau technique. Now that I have given you a lot of information surrounding Art Nouveau, I would like to end this presentation with 3 slides of photos that were from English Art Nouveau. This first slide has 2 graphics that both being created by Aubrey Beardsley. The first image on the left, titled Salome, was one of his more exotic and shocking pieces that was included in William Morris's Outrage. As I have said before, his style of designing was a mix of Art Nouveau and using unity and aestheticism. through using eroticism and decadence. And then you have the second photo on the right being his inaugural issue that won him the cover of the Yellow Book magazine called The Studio. Next, you have the first picture on the left being created by the great children's book illustrator Walter Crane. This is the cover of The Beauty and the Beast, and you can see how much detail and time that he took in creating his book covers and illustrations. On the right side of this slide, you have another design created by Walter Crane called the Water Lily that was created in 1890, again showing his great attention to detail, combining bold modeling with very intense color. Lastly, for our last slide, we have the work of William Morris and his beautiful textile work. The first image on the left-hand side is the snakehead print, and on the right is the design for Tulip. Both of these pieces, among most of his textile work, were done with embroidery and, as you can see, were inspired by nature. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation about English Art Nouveau. Here are my sources. Thank you very much. Have a great day.